It's hard to believe that only 4 years ago, the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, was an unstoppable behemoth of a franchise, the most profitable thing we had ever seen out of Hollywood. 4 years later, it's now a floptastic machine of failure, led by one Kevin Feige, who holds both the title of being the most successful man leading a studio in cinematic history and now also being the producer of the biggest flop of all time in the Marvels. What happened though? What caused Marvel to suddenly be no longer fun to audiences? Today we're going to examine the drastic and dramatic fall of superheroes. It's not fatigue, it's a failure in direction. Hello folks, welcome back to the WDW Pro channel. Happy to have you. Today we're talking about the MCU. It's difficult to believe that it was just a short while ago that people couldn't get enough. People wanted to know what was going to happen in the next movie, all the connections, all the amazing characters, the team-ups, the opportunities. Oh, when would they bring in the X-Men and how would they come into being? Now all that's really left is Deadpool 3, and that's largely because audiences believe Ryan Reynolds is at least partially separated out from the rest of what's been happening with Marvel. That's not a good sign. It's not a good sign at all. And every single sign we have shows that people aren't having fun with what Marvel has been up to in their latest phases. Today we're going to talk about it. We've got an astounding panel ready to bring you the latest. Let's dive into it right now. Lorena, I'm curious, do you think that this is a situation where perhaps the philosophies of Hollywood have been thrown out into the real world and they just don't work? And in particular, I'm thinking about, egalitarianism. I think is a good thing. The idea that people should be given equal rights and opportunities and all of that. But where you try to force that upon people, so you go a step further beyond egalitarianism, and you say, well, men and women are going to make the same choices in the market, or we can make a product that's equally as exciting to men and women and everybody of every age. I think that's a theory that now has no future. What do you think of that, Lorena?
Well, I'll put it to you like this. As someone who has been a fan of comics since I was a kid, and the idea of it and the reality of it being male dominated never bothered me. What I wanted to see is I wanted to see my heroes on screen, no matter what they were. For example, Iron Man, I freaking love that movie. Absolutely, absolutely love that film. Why was I drawn to it? It's a character that I read about in the comics and something that I was excited to see on screen. And for the longest time, up into, including Infinity War, you had these characters that people could identify with, both with men and women. Yes, with comics, I know some people want to say that this is not the case, but it is true. It is a male dominated, well, we'll put it this way. The target are male viewers. That's 100% exactly what it is. You have females that are interested in that particular genre as well. They come along. Where you make your money is creating a quality product that people, regardless of gender, regardless of race, would want to see. Now, to talk about representation, because I know there's some people who will say, well, representation isn't important. It's not the only thing, but you cannot discount the power of that representation when it's done correctly. Case in point, Black Panther did extremely well. But I think one of the things that Hollywood is gravitating to their peril is this, the mantle strategy, the fact that, we can just include anyone and not pay attention to the lore that made this particular franchise as powerful and as popular as it is. And what you can see from call it the MCU version, which I will call it, with the phase 4 and into phase 5 Marvel films, the more that they go towards that strategy, the less and less interest. Black Widow, I was happy to see, but it's a movie where it's like by the time they released it, Black Widow was dead. So as much as I love that character, why did you take so long to put that out? The other one with the Marvels, I didn't care for that because as far as I was concerned, why would I be interested in this film? Why would I need to watch WandaVision and Ms. Marvel, which I thought Ms. Marvel was okay. I just was not the demographic for it, for this film which really didn't interest me on any level. I didn't see any real character growth, any real reason for me to see this particular film at all. So
If I could get in there for a second,
sure.
I could tell you exactly why a lot of the Marvel movies these days don't work, and it has to do with one thing that didn't exist really until Endgame happened, which is Disney Plus. So when you watched Marvel movies from 2008 to 2019, you just had to go watch maybe 2 to 3 movies a year, right? And if you watch
Yes.
those movies, you could keep up with everything. You'd be like, okay, I know who Spider-Man is because he was in Civil War. I know who this person is. Da 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 da. When Disney Plus happened, they made all these Disney Plus shows, obviously. Then when it became keeping up with Marvel, it became like homework because, especially this is my personal opinion, why the Marvels failed beyond the fact that it's just like, no one really wanted it to begin with. When you look at the poster for that movie, if you're someone who hasn't watched a Marvel movie since Endgame and you look at that poster, you see Captain Marvel and you're like, yeah, I know who that is. And then you see these other two random people and you're like, who are these people? You know what I mean? Because if you want to know what's her name, Monica Rambeau Photon is, you have to watch
Mhm.
WandaVision. If you want to know Miss Marvel is, you have to watch Miss Marvel. And we found out Miss Marvel was the least watched MCU show of all time. So
I'll
they
also
took
add
these
to that, you have to watch the back half of WandaVision in order to know who
yeah,
Monica Rambeau is.
yeah. So you have this poster with these people on it, and you're like, who the hell are these people? You know what I mean? Especially like I can only imagine someone that hasn't watched a Marvel movie since like Endgame or Infinity War, and then they're like, oh, I'll go watch Secret Wars or something, and then they go see like Loki's alive sitting on a chair holding a bunch of green threads, and they're like, didn't that guy get choked to death by Thanos? Like, why is he alive?
That's a
And
great
again,
And
point.
Damian, you are
it's because
absolutely
yeah,
absolutely
it's
correct.
all
And to kind of
it's
add to that,
homework now.
yeah, exactly. It's that's exactly what it is. It's homework, and that's one of my biggest pet peeves with the recent MCU movies. It's like, why should I have to go back and watch all these Disney Plus shows in order to figure out what's going on in the film? Now, if you do a good job of bringing people up to speed quickly, case in point, live action version of One Piece on Netflix, you do it that way, okay, it's fine. But it's frustrating. Another case that I'll bring up, for example, I didn't watch Civil War for a while. I dropped out of the Avengers movies. So when I went to go see Infinity War, I'm like, why all of a sudden is everybody clapping and everything because Cap picked up Thor's hammer? I knew something was up with that, but I didn't get that. And someone said, "Oh, you have to go watch Age of Ultron." I'm like, "Okay, great. I missed that. Let's go back and watch it." That was something I could go back and pick up and watch. However, it didn't take me out of the experience of watching Infinity War from the reaction that everyone else had. That kind of caught me up in real time that was something important that happened. So I didn't feel left out. With watching the Marvels, it's kind of like, well, why does Monica Rambeau do this, and what's up with Miss Marvel? And there's just too many questions going on. And it's a difference between going back and watching a 2-hour movie or having to go back and watch 6 to 10 to 12 hours of a Disney Plus show.
Well,
It's
You know
I
it's
what's
want
kind of
fascinating as we look at this? What is the top? What is the top example here of the most profitable film? It's Spider-Man: No Way Home, which is in some ways the most homework they have ever had anyone do for a Marvel film. But at the same time, I think you can drop into that thing and it's still a good movie, whether or not you have the lore, whether or not you understand all the things. I think when it's a good movie without the lore, that is the peak of what Marvel can be. I'm reminded of when I was little. Marvel started putting these little extra flaps in all of their comic books, giving you a rundown of who everybody dropping in was for that issue. I don't think that you can do that in a Marvel movie. In fact, when they tried to kind of do that in the Marvels, it was super awkward and super weird. I think this is a thing where just comics have not translated to movies. And I think they got confused about the fact that if you stick a comic book character in there, then it'll be fine. When what in actuality it is if you stick in a character that you translate into a movie experience and to a script will say it better than I could ever say it if I'm even saying it correctly. If you can have an engaging character that happens to be a comic book character, yes, you have checked the box. There is your assignment. You have completed the assignment. Whereas what I think they're doing now is saying, well, this is technically something that appeared in the comic books one time. So then they consider their assignment completed, and then they show up and nobody cares about these characters.
Well, I want to give an assignment to everybody out there, and it's all depending on where you are at the moment. Because, folks, if your boss is watching you while you're at work right now, this is going to make them think something odd is up. So be careful about that. And if you're driving, you probably don't want to do this. But if you are watching this stream on a computer monitor in the privacy or privacy of your own home or your own cubicle or wherever you might be, I want you to take your finger and place it between Iron Man and Incredible Hulk. And then I just want you to drag your finger. Yes, don't do this on a touch screen, but just drag your finger up to Spider-Man No Way Home. Now, if you want to do this with an imaginary finger that you are creating in your own mind, that's fine. You can all do this. Okay, you're going to notice that it's curving upwards, and it's exponentially increasing. Now, just take your finger and hover it over Doctor Strange, the Multiverse of Madness, and drop down to the Marvels. Just do that and create that line in your mind where you can see the original strategy of Marvel. What was that producing? This new change that started with Phase 4 and Phase 5, what is that producing? One was a curving upwards exponential lift, and one is an absolute collapse off a cliff. We can come up with all kinds of reasons why this is happening, but the bottom line is it's happening. And so, yes, script.
Well, sorry to interrupt. I'll bring up 2 points. The first one is, and it's a question you should all ask, which is, when is homework not homework?
When it's fun.
Exactly. If those Disney Plus shows were fun and people actually wanted to watch them, nobody would ever regard them as homework. The second part is something actually quite ironic when it comes to that graph. Well, if you chart all the movie's progress from Iron Man all the way to the end, you have what's called a story arc. So you have the rising action, which hits with the peaks at the Avengers. You then got the second act with your mid-act turning point or your lowest point, which comes around the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. And then you have your rise to the climax all the way to No Way Home, followed by the denouement, which ends with the Marvels. It tracks just like a normal story arc pattern with ebbs and flows.
Well, they need a new story arc then, I suppose.
I would say this story arc has completed itself, and yes, they should be starting a brand new one somewhere else. And I don't mean that with regards to a full reboot. I mean that there is an avenue they can explore where they can continue the next chapter, as you will, and hopefully find some new footing to have another successful track record. But unless they stick to what made the brand good and reinforce that over and over, you are going to get another repeat pattern of what you just saw.
All right, folks, that is the finale. We're over. We're done. Put it in the can. Wrap a bow on it because it was great, at least in my estimation. If that's the same as your estimation, well, consider clicking the like button. Share, subscribe, and when you click it, you stick it to the algorithms. It's the notification bell. Drop a comment down below. Let us know your thoughts. And we hope you're having a wonderful holiday season, much more fun than perhaps the folks over at Marvel Studios who may not be having nearly as good a time as they once were. But folks, wherever you are and whatever you're doing, keep learning, keep growing, and keep having fun.